Welcome back. Our next guest is running for president of the United States. Her name is Sorinne Ardeleanu, and she's going to be talking about life or something like it. Sorinne is a presidential candidate, author, healer, and visionary currently focused on working on improving values, media, healthcare, politics, and education so the masses may be empowered to live authentic, purposeful, healthy, peaceful, loving, and prosperous lives by correctly applying nature's laws correctly. So, welcome, Sorinne.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I love your background, by the way. I love your videos with the heart and everything. I love how you just kind of really bring out love in your message.
Thank you. Well, I feel that it's very much needed, and so I'm just playing my part and spreading it around.
Absolutely. Well, floor is yours whenever you're ready.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Daniel invited me and was asking me, what do I want to talk about? I'm like, well, there's many things I like to talk about, so let's just call it life or something like it, because I really enjoy helping people figure out life. And that's part of the reason that I'm running. And so I'm wondering if I can talk about pretty much anything and be of service in many different ways. So I'm wondering if there's something specifically that you want me to focus on and share with the audience today.
Well, I mean, you're living life. We're living life. You're the expert on your life. So, is there
Awesome.
anything of experience that you have found to be a catalyst for, or basically how you became an activist, how you decided to just advance liberty and love?
Sure. So hitting bottom several times. And I actually wonder if that is the path for most people that really change their lives around and decide to do what they believe is ultimately beneficial for everyone and not just themselves. Because it wasn't until I was, in my darkest hours questioning, why am I here? And really trying to understand what had happened in my life. Why was I in so much pain? That, it was in that whole process that I realized how much I had created in my life, because of not understanding how life works. And, it just kind of hit me like, oh, like I have a pattern, especially from childhood. We all do, especially based on how we're raised. And for me, I grew up in a very abusive environment. And so I associated abuse and love together, even though that's not what I wanted. That's not what anybody wants, especially, people who grow up in abusive environments. They want peace. They want real love, not this fake version that they thought was love, or we all know, but subconsciously that's what we're taught. And so for me, it was realizing that I was creating this pattern everywhere in my life, even though I had broken free from many other patterns, because I grew up very poor as well. I had overcome that. I learned how to make money. That was really easy. But learning how to experience love in the world, learning how to experience positivity in the world, that was something that nobody actually taught me. And so for me, taking responsibility, realizing, oh, wait, I've been doing all these things all these years to attract the same relationship over and over everywhere I go. Because we all do this. It's you hear about it a lot with dating, like, oh, you're just dating somebody with a different name, but it's still the same person, right? Because we have this pattern, and it's when you face that pattern that you overcome it. And, and I'm sure that others have it in other aspects of their life. That's why I mentioned it was happening in my career, it was happening in my personal relationship. It wasn't just happening in my romantic, relationships. So we all have patterns. And that was really the big shift for me, is realizing that I have a lot more power than anybody had ever told me. And realizing that through discipline and consistency and the desire, or rather the aspiration for better, that I could have better. And so my whole life started changing at that point. But I think I mentioned, it's not a straight line. You don't just get it right the first time. It wasn't like I hit bottom once. I hit bottom a few times, because it's not necessarily a path that is sold to us. Because, for example, I realized it doesn't promote consumerism, right? It's a path that promotes self-fulfillment in a way, when you feel complete with all life. And, but it's taken me time. It's been about, 10 years since I began this journey, going on 11 now. So it wasn't like this happened overnight. And I'm sharing with people because this is something I believe that we're all going towards. I believe we all want to feel peace. We all want to feel successful. We all want to feel secure. We all want to feel fulfilled and, and healthy. But we're all going to find out that we can't buy any of those states of being, that we're going to have to work for them. But I really hope that people don't have to hit bottom. And actually, I'm curious what you think. If you think that there's another way to get here without hitting bottom, or do we all have to go through that?
Honestly, honey, I've had to go through what you've had to go through. I've had to hit bottom as well to change my own patterns. So I know exactly what you're saying. Of course, no two lives are the same, and no two path is the same. But like you said, humanity, I mean, we're just kind of creatures of habit and what we see. And if everybody is struggling, then as children, we learn that struggle, and then we end up adapting that struggle until we have to learn from it ourselves. And unfortunately, as some adults just don't see like their adults, their parents or their figures break that struggle. So they end up going on to their struggle. And a lot of them don't break it. But, you're one tough broad, and I am happy that I feel like I've done the same thing. I broke my struggle, and I'm in a very happy place, and where I feel so happy and where I'm at, I wanted to show, and share peace and love and liberty and what that means. So I'm right there with you on your message.
Good. I'm glad to hear that you've had a similar journey, and that's why I share, because I believe that all human beings go through this. That even like in my circumstances where I was experiencing abuse on a daily basis, it wasn't because my mother didn't love me. It was because she didn't know how to love me. She wanted the best for me. I was an only child. She was an immigrant. She didn't have much to offer me, and so she thought that she could force me to, show up a certain way in the world. And this is really important, to consider, not because of me. I don't care if anybody, cares about my story, but I think about how does my story relate to what's going on in the world. For example, I think about all those wealthy parents who, bribe schools for their kids to get in. And, perhaps, their children would be happier doing something else that comes more naturally to them, right? Because I believe that we all have a unique purpose. And so when parents try to force their children to do something that they're not naturally inclined to do, the children are most likely not only not going to be successful, they're not going to be happy in life. They're going to have resentment that they didn't get to do what they really wanted to do. And the thing is, being an artist is just as important as being a doctor. And that's something that I think societally we have to get over. We have to really encourage people to be their most authentic selves. I mean, that's a big part of my campaign is, helping people to understand the value and the freedom of feeling safe enough in the world to discover who you really are, to develop your gifts and to share them freely. I believe that's what everybody wants, as well. That's part of that sense of completion is like, hey, it's okay to be me. Yeah, I'm unique, but so is everybody else. And I have something that will benefit everybody. And it's okay that it maybe shows up in a way that has never showed up with anybody else. Like the world supports me and encourages me. That's the type of environment I want to create for people, because I've created that for myself, and then I realized the value of it. And, freedom is a big part of it, because had I not had the freedom to live life on my terms for the past decade, had I not started investing in the stock market in my early 20s, I wouldn't have been able to find myself. I wouldn't have found this, place of security. And so I talk about freedom because it's also a huge responsibility. Like in my journey, I've realized that, I could have anything I want. And I say that not arrogantly, because I'm very, I overcame imposter syndrome. I have the opposite of a big ego, but I've realized that there's something, I figured out how to get what I want out of life, but I realized that it's not always what's best for me. Just because we can get our way in life doesn't mean it's right for us. I realize it's really important to be responsible with freedom and to understand, the authenticity part, that whatever it is that you are designed to do, because different things make you happy versus what makes me happy. And when we do those things, like that's when we forget we even have a body. It's like you're just so in the moment. It's like, wait, and that's actually health. because if you don't feel your body, you're not in pain, you're in the moment, you're in flow. And that's really what I want, regardless of what happens at the polls. Like, this is what I dedicated my life 2 years ago, is helping others get to this place, because I really believe if we're all in this beautiful place of flow and being authentic, that there will be enough to go around, that people will contribute, that they don't need to be forced. We like giving. Human beings, it feels good to give. It feels good to help somebody figure out life. Feels good to see somebody is free and better because of, perhaps something you said or did, not necessarily to take the credit, but to realize, like, hey, you made a positive impact. Now this person is better, and now the people that they touch are going to be better. Right? It's like a domino effect. We're kind of, I'm free flowing with you, so feel free to, reel
Yeah.
me in and
I
stuff.
no, you're going. I love exactly what you're saying, and I relate to all of that. And I want to add to that, the authenticity of being somebody and having that hand in hand with liberty. I think having to be authentic in order to make liberty successful, whether on an individual or societal level, you also have to add in integrity. And I think that's another thing, like you said, we're sorely lacking in being authentic, but we're also lacking as a society in integrity. If you expect people to live in liberty, then you have to expect them to want it for everybody, and that comes with a lot of integrity. And but yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. I love the whole everyone needs to be encouraged to be authentic. And I like how we are kind of going down that path. The internet and TikTok and a bunch of other, platforms have really helped people kind of shed their molds that society has maybe put on them. And of course, the kids are going to struggle with that because that's just kind of how we grow up, right? But some of that time ends up going into adulthood, and then it kind of imprisons them in that mold instead of and just going with the flow of how government's treating them, or how to live their life. And then they forget about being authentic and loving and understanding of individuals, and of
Yeah.
course the liberty that goes with it. So
I feel like the world that we live in, the world that I'm working on improving for future generations, requires a lot of courage to practice authenticity and integrity, and that, those things go hand in hand. I just think about my own journey and how I talked, briefly about imposter syndrome, and that's really when you don't believe in yourself, when you don't believe you're not good enough because, you grew up perhaps, in a world that told you that you weren't good enough, that you were ugly, that you were stupid, that you were imperfect, this, that, and that, right? And you start to believe it because you hear it over and over again, right? And so
yeah,
it
weird and
takes,
strange is what most libertarians hear.
yeah, but
Growing up.
and yeah, my nickname in high school was Freak Girl, okay, because I was a little different than everybody else. I was on the honor roll. I like to dress up, but like I had a weird background, and I wasn't like everybody else. And I realize it now, and I've forgiven everybody. I don't take any of this personally. I understand where it comes from. It's the ego, the false sense of identity. It is threatened by the unknown. I mean, this is human behavior. So I have a very heavy background in psychology and psychiatry, and so one of the things that has been driving me is understanding what drives behavior and what drives hate. What drives these hateful, harmful behaviors. A lot of times, it's insecurity, it's fear of the unknown, it's a threat. That which we don't understand, we either hate it or we love it. We want to destroy it or we idolize it. There's no in between. And so that's why education is really important. It makes things more neutral, right? It's like, oh, that person or that idea, it's not so strange. It's not so different. Maybe it's okay that that person excels at that. And, I excel at this. We're not all supposed to excel at the same things, right? It's understanding that we all have different paths, because I feel like a lot of us struggle with finding, who am I? Who is the most authentic version of me? When we live in a world that is promoting all these mixed values. Because for me, the very first thing I wanted to do when I was an adult was make money, lots of it. I was obsessed with making money, and I made it. I was stuck up, but it didn't make me happy. It almost killed me because that was my number one priority, and it shouldn't have been that, but it was because those were the values that I was being taught in the world. My number one priority now is just to like love myself, to be true to myself, to honor myself. That I realize that how I treat myself is the most important thing, and not just for me, but for the world around me, because we set examples, right? How we treat ourselves as individuals influences how others treat us, as well as how they treat themselves. And so this is where integrity really comes in, and consistency is understanding that you are worth it, and that when you lead by example, you lift others up with you. And so that's been a big part of my journey, is like learning to hold myself to high standards and to strive for them, while realizing that I'm human. I'm going to not be perfect, and that's okay, but I'm going to try better tomorrow, and I'm going to forgive myself for not doing as well yesterday, and know that, I'm a different person today. And I think that's really important, no matter what it is we're doing in life, is to forgive ourselves. Because like, as I've been preparing to run for president, and as I actually have begun to run for president, I've been challenged by some pretty big events in my life. And I've had to really separate myself and remind myself who I am and who I'm becoming, and remind myself that, everything in life ebbs and flows. There's a season, we go through seasons in nature, individually, collectively. We understand that, and I don't know if I forget, I wasn't paying attention, but I heard there's a conversation prior kind of talking about, that we know that there's going to be highs, there's going to be lows. We just have to be prepared for them, and they're not such a surprise. For me, it's like right now, a lot of people are having a difficult time because of what's going on in the world. But I look at it like, I've been preparing for this. I'm okay. I got my cool. Like, I've been living like this for a long time anyway, by choice. I'm a little concerned about the motivation behind what's going on, so I'm focused on it that way. But I'm not emotional. I know that no matter what, I'm solid. Everything's going to be okay. I'm going to do my best. And I believe that this is something that's worthwhile for everybody to invest in, to obtain, this a sense of being grounded no matter what happens in the world, because then you're in control and you make better decisions.
Absolutely. So one of the, of course, you talk about your rock bottom, and a couple times just kind of getting low. Was there a particular moment that really just kind of set the light bulb off for you about that liberty is the path you need to be on? Is there a particular moment that like lit that fire under your ass and it was just like, I've got to do this, not just for myself, but for others?
So I actually have an opposite moment.
Okay.
That's a lot clearer, but I'll share both. Because I had a lot of freedom in my life till I was about 23. And I mean this with the most respect, but I got engaged when I was 23, and we're still friends. We're not together. And I conformed a lot, because back then I was very insecure, and, I had a partner that had certain expectations of me, and I wanted to please my partner. And so in a way, like, I consciously went into the world, and I said, I'm going to conform. I'm going to get like, well, for me, it was a normal job. I was going to, stop working from home and like work at a car dealership selling Bentleys and Lamborghinis. That was my way of conforming. But I made a conscious choice to conform and play a part, and then I worked for somebody that told me, that I had to wear pants and not a skirt, and had to wear my hair up and, not down. And I couldn't hug my clients, even though there were all kinds of other things going on with other employees. So, but I decided to consciously go into conformity, because I was insecure. And then I had very severe PTSD when I was about 28 years old. It began to come on. And that was when I I took a medical leave. I went on disability for a few months, and that was when everything shifted. That was in 2009. And I haven't gone back to that life, but I had a bit of an identity crisis, before going back to freedom, because I had freedom, then I conformed, and I went back to freedom. I had a bit of an identity crisis because I admit, it was kind of easy going on a path that seemed very predictable. I was making really good money. I was managing dealerships. I was going up, like I could just be doing, slinging cars all over the country right now and just having a crazy lifestyle. But it wasn't fulfilling, but that was the path I was on. And it was like, I didn't have to think about it. And then I had to figure out, like, what am I going to do with myself? What am I going to do with my life? There's so many possibilities. Like, I could be good at anything that I set my mind to. I know this about myself. And I believe this is possible for most of us, that anybody that truly wants to accomplish something can. So for me, it was just a wake up of realizing, that I didn't want to be here, but I would never do anything to harm myself. And it was just kind of realizing, like, wondering, like, what's wrong, and realizing that I am responsible for all this suffering the same way that I can be responsible for pleasure and joy and freedom, because freedom is it's not just physical. That's what a lot of people don't understand. And we kind of talked about this already. And, I work with people in criminal justice reform, especially exonerees and people who have been wrongfully convicted. And so I've talked to a lot of these people, and I am amazed that, especially the ones that are still incarcerated for crimes that they didn't commit, how free they are, behind bars. That many of these people are more free behind bars than you and I out here are in the free world, because they've had all this time to reflect and all this time without distractions. I want to mention that something else I learned along my journey is there's a lot of distractions out there. I'm talking about consumerism. I used to be a shopaholic. I have a closet that probably most women would fight for. Everything had to be designer. I would drop thousands of dollars and just, a shopping spree at one store. It wasn't a big deal for me because I thought those things would make me happy. I used to get a new car every 6 to 9 months, but these things were just to try to fill a void. And that's what, I really hope that not just Americans, but all humans understand that these distractions, they're fun, but they're not what ultimately brings us satisfaction. And for people that, are looking for peace in their life and looking for fulfillment, they're not going to find it by buying more stuff. They're going to find it by being honest with themselves and having the courage really to admit who they are and to present themselves to the world. You said something earlier, kind of like, I don't think you used the word enslaved, but something similar. But you reminded me of, I have this theory, because I had really severe PTSD. And so I have this theory around, why is it that, some people commit suicide, especially celebrities, like Linkin Park, for example, right? Chester.
Yeah, Chester Bennington. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was thinking, well, I'm a writer. That's one of my natural gifts, is like something I've always been doing. And I noticed, like, when I was younger, I liked to write about, like, the pain that I was going through, right? And what did it do? It created more pain. And so I thought about, well, here, he's an artist, right? He gets paid to perform songs about pain, right? And to be really good at those performances, he has to go into that state of being every time. And so in a way, his celebrity has enslaved him. And I'm not just talking about him, but, actors, if you're always playing a part, but you're not playing your real part, the world doesn't know who you are. And how does that affect you? If you're, so it's just something to think about. I'm not talking about legislating morality in any shape or form, but as artists, because we are all creators, we create with our hearts. Even the way you and I are speaking, we can choose what we say in the world, and we can choose to say things that make us feel good or make us feel bad. And, what we listen to is really important. I bring up Linkin Park because I have a friend, unfortunately, he recently took his own life. He was a veteran. He was in Iraq for 13 years. And the last song he posted on Facebook was a Linkin Park song. So it's on my mind. It's like, this is still happening. People still don't understand that listening to music like this, if you're not strong enough, if you're going through, a difficult time in your life, it's going to have an effect on you. And, like, we really, we need to be more conscious about these things. I know we're talking about freedom, but these things do enslave us. We have the freedom to choose what we listen to. We have the freedom to choose how we speak, right? So those things we can control. I'm not telling people don't listen to that kind of music. I'm just telling people, consider how it makes you feel. And, and how it makes the artist feel. Like, because what if, let's take Chester, for example. Let's say that he worked through whatever pain he had in his life, but then he has to go back and perform those songs again. right? Because he's attached to that identity. He's afraid that, this is theoretical, okay?
Yeah.
But
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
so he
He's kind of imprisoned in that mold of early success and the character that he had to portray and act to be. And then he has to keep acting, even though that may not be his authentic self anymore, going through change. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. It's like, how do you move on if you keep touching the wound? Right. And, I had a conversation with somebody today about reparations with this, it's like, I want to do what's best for everybody, right? I think the idea of reparations sounds good on paper, but it doesn't actually empower people. Giving people something for free, it doesn't actually provide for their future. It's just a one-time fix. It doesn't influence their behavior to take better care of themselves. We haven't taught them to take better care of ourselves. We have to lead by example. We have to do better. And this is an interesting conversation. I don't say it with any kind of disrespect because I don't have all the answers. I just feel that the more that we keep talking about all the things that happened in the past that were wrong and not forgiving our earlier selves, previous generations and even previous generations of our literal selves, right? We're not going to move forward. And it's hard for people because it doesn't mean that I want to ignore what's happened in the past. It's just that I want to move forward and let's start telling a better and different story. Let's enslave ourselves with something positive, if we're going to do it.
Exactly. And most libertarians, libertarian activists or anarchist activists, we kind of do, when we find that we kind of like put those chains on, but it's almost for a good cause, and we chose our chains. So and there's not that many of us, so most of us have to do a lot of work for just a small amount of people. So yeah, I like that analogy you used right there. Just kind of choosing, re-enslaving ourselves in our activism. I really like that. So now you said you had a background in like counseling and psychology, that kind of thing. How did you get into that?
Sure. Well, because of my childhood, I really wanted to understand what drove behavior. And so I majored in psychology. And that's really, what led to me running for president. It was around that time I realized it's our values that influence our behavior. And I realized, well, if I want to make the world a better place, I've got to find a way to target values in a massive way, and I realized, well, I've got to become a so-called authority figure. And when I say authority figure, I don't mean like a power authority, but an expert, somebody that is considered, worthwhile listening to. For example, we use that word loosely today. But no, it was just really wanting to help others that led me down this path. And, I got into understanding how hypnosis works, conditioning, reprogramming, and essentially it's the same thing. And, for example, advertising. So that was one of the first things I learned in psychology, was that I could get into advertising and marketing because you understand how to influence behavior. It takes as little as 33 seconds to hypnotize somebody. So when you're watching TV, if any of us still watch like good old fashioned TV with commercials, you're relaxed when you're watching the show. And so they sneak in a commercial right when you're relaxed, and basically your guard is down in your mind. And so you're open to the ideas that are being presented to you. That's why a lot of advertising, those infomercials that happen late at night, they prey on people who are vulnerable and weak. It's like, you're depressed, whatever. It's like, because they know that you're not all, like, your defenses aren't there, so you're not reasoning, so you're going to believe them, and you're vulnerable to call them and give them your money. And so it's I wish that actually more people were educated in how the mind works, because all of us have been hypnotized in some shape or form and we don't even know it. And we can hypnotize ourselves. It's called autosuggestion. And, it's a lot more empowering if you're telling yourself, I'm healthy, I am smart, I am capable, right? Instead of all those other voices that are telling you you're not enough. Right. But we're not taught this. I mean, this is another, really why, I am working, in getting to be an authority figure. One of the things I want to influence is our education curriculums. It's, children should be learning about how the mind works. They should understand, why they are inclined to do certain things so that they don't feel bad, because again, like I mentioned, we're not all meant to do the same things. And so if we help our children develop in what's natural for them, they're going to be a lot happier than we are.
That's my goal as a mother. I have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I'm constantly trying to explain tough situations to them in the most loving and peaceful way. And yeah, I mean, I think if we try as adults to influence, whether it's our children or just a niece or a nephew or anybody who's younger, on really at any age, I would suggest anybody under the age of like 22 needs influencing, not even at 18. Um, but yeah, I like I like how you're bringing that mass message of authenticity and freedom, and it's really refreshing. Um, Trying to think of a question for you. I had one earlier and then it left me as I was trying to talk. But if there's anything on topic, when it comes back to me, I'll ask you. But if there's anything that you were wanting to talk about, whether it's how you decided, oh, there we go. How did you decide to run? Not why, but how did you decide? You know, you've explained why you want to run and the purpose of it, but
Yeah.
how did you come to that decision? Like, where was that aha moment? Like, I should just do
Oh,
this.
well, so like I mentioned, about 20 years ago, I had, I felt like I was going to run for president because I felt like that was the best position to influence values and behavior. And then, as I mentioned, about almost 11 years ago, I went on disability, and that was a big shift in my life. Everything changed, my relationships, my lifestyles. And one of my best friends took me under his wings because he saw that I was going through a really difficult time with the PTSD. I was in and out of the hospital. I didn't want to be in my body. I was in a lot of physical pain. And he turned me on to studying a philosophy of life that correlates universal truths because he thought, education, he's a really smart guy. He's kind of famous. And, I trusted him. Like, okay, here's somebody that's accomplished a lot in the world. He's only a couple weeks older than me, but he's done a lot. So let me listen to him. And I started, understanding really energy, like because science tells us everything is energy. And
It
I
can neither
started,
be created nor destroyed.
yep,
Yes, it's
it's
something that I absolutely believe in, and I put that. I actually, yeah,
yeah,
that law kind of follows me on almost everything when it comes to energy, and yeah.
yeah, energy is right. It just is. And so the law of perpetual transmutation is really, it's just basically energy is constantly just changing forms, right? And so my friend introduced me to this, and I've been absorbing as many classes and lectures and books as I can since 2011, and surrounding myself with people that are also interested in understanding life and correlating universal truths, especially from the perspective of looking at everything as energy. And I became more sensitive to energy, I believe, and I so this is kind of out there probably because I didn't even know what this was until about a year and a half ago. So I have something that's called aphantasia, which is basically the inability to, imagine things. So I don't have a mind's eye. So if you tell me to close my eyes and imagine a beach, when I close my eyes, everything is just black, and I will remember what it felt like to be on a beach. I feel it. I don't see it. Okay. And so the reason I mention this is I used to call, and I still do, I would have visions. I would have feelings that I would call visions of something happening before it would happen, and it would feel real. And I've had a few of them, and I've shared them with other people when they've included other people, and they've been some pretty big, serious things. And, I'm not labeling this anything because I'm just a fluid being. I'm just trusting my experiences. But I had a vision where people were chanting Sorinne 2020 about a decade ago. And it freaked me out because I am like, whoa, like me, no, I'm not perfect. I don't, I have a history. I'm not experienced, all these things. No, no, no. And I just tried to fight it. And I only told one person at the time, who was one of my mentors, because I happened to see him like, shortly after this happened. And he was supportive, and we just left it at that, and then I started doing more work, helping people, like educating people on how to reprogram their bodies and mind, collaborating with kind of pioneers in epigenetics and neuroscience, and just meeting people that are kind of up there, in the things that I'm interested in. And some of them saw me as president. Some of them saw me running, and they told me this without me asking them anything. I didn't tell anybody because I was embarrassed that I would get judged, that I wasn't good enough. But they started telling me, and then other people started telling me, and then even people that knew me started telling me, that they saw me in this position. And so I just started to surrender to it, because I found that when I was fighting it and trying to do other things, that I actually started to experience physical diseases in my body. And I mention this because health has been a big thing for me, being in and out of a hospital, ER trips, with PTSD. I realized how much our mind affects our health, and how much, and this is why I talk about authenticity, because I do believe that whatever we are meant to be, we must be. And so how did I do this? I surrendered. I realized this isn't about what I want. This isn't about my fears. This isn't about what I've been taught. This is about trusting this feeling from inside. This is about looking at my life and realizing what I have learned and what I have to offer others, and just going for it and giving it, and not being attached to the outcome, and just facing my greatest fear head on. Because I realized if I can do that, there's nothing else to fear. And I realized that I can inspire others to stand up. I mean, one of the people that encouraged me on the way, she said that, she saw me like a lighthouse, and that I had this network of lighthouses around the world that were just waiting for me to send the signal to activate them. And I love that picture that she painted for me, because it's like, she's right. This is not about me. Yes, I may feel complete and at peace with everything that is, but to not share something that can create that sense of peace for others is really selfish of me. I can't go through life and not do that, and believe me, I try to talk myself out of this so many times. It was like, I was saying, I could be traveling around the world, living this 5-star life like I used to, but I couldn't sleep at night. I couldn't have peace with myself doing that at this point in my life. It's like, I know better. I can't just be on the sidelines and let this happen in front of me without getting involved and making an effort. Because like I said, it's not about me. It's about seeing what everybody else is going through and understanding that I have something that can help them. And I'm not going to do anything for anybody. They have to do it for themselves. All I can do is guide them, right? So I'm not even looking to take credit, because at the end of the day, I just want people to feel like they did it themselves. I want to create an environment of self-sustainability. So it's a little bit of a long answer to how did I get involved, but really, I didn't have a choice when I looked at all these factors around me. It's like, I have to give. I have to do this. There's no other reason that I'm here right now except for to share everything that I understand.
Now, you decided to run for president, which I'm loving it, because I love to see a beautiful young female. And of course, people are going to be like, whoa, why are you labeling her that way? Well, I mean, it's to break the norm. And like you said, it's not about ego, and it's not about that, but it's kind of like the, uh, like I forgot the word, but you're reflecting onto other people that image of trying to normalize authenticity.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm setting
Projecting.
a precedent.
Yes.
Yeah, well, because one of the things that helped me run for office is seeing people similar to me that have done similar things that I am trying to do. Obviously, nobody has done it because I'm trying to do something unique, but I realize that when you see someone like you in the world doing something similar to what you want to do, it gives you permission to do the same. You feel like, if she can do it, so can I. If he can do it, so can I. We normalize the behavior. And so, again, that's why leading by example is so important. Whoever we elect, whether it's me or somebody else, we need to elect people whose values we want our society to emulate, because that's what we're going to normalize. And it's not just the office of president. All of our elected officials are essentially elevated leaders, and we need to choose leaders that reflect the values that we want to see in our world, not necessarily the leaders that are the most popular. One of the things I've realized in my journey is not everybody likes to hear the truth, but it is a great filter, because people who don't want to hear the truth will just disappear because it makes them uncomfortable. But we need leaders who have the courage to speak the truth, even if it makes us uncomfortable, because that's the only way we're going to progress. We really need to start addressing all the elephants in the room, A big part of my platform is addressing causes instead of effects. And I give examples of gun control, healthcare, drug regulation, and how right now the government is currently addressing these aspects of society from, looking at the effects and not the causes. And so that's why we're not getting better, right? With gun control, I talk about, why are people inclined to harm others, right? That's the real issue. The issue isn't do people have guns or not? The issue is why do people want to harm others, right? So let's address that. So let's look at love, right? Because people who feel loved and people who love themselves aren't going to harm others, right? Let's look at healthcare, for example. We're addressing symptoms, the effects, not causes. So what do we have? We don't really have healthy people. We have some, the people that go into the typical medical, Western healthcare system. We're addressing their symptoms. They might have a better quality of life, but they're not fully resolved. And the thing is that most diseases are, unfortunately, self-created through lifestyle. We're putting things in our body that we shouldn't. We're not moving enough. We're not sleeping enough. We're, putting things in our minds that aren't good for us either, right? We don't want to take the personal responsibility. We just want a pill or a surgery and be instantly perfect. No, you got to work for it, and drugs, we want to punish people for using drugs, and we don't understand why are they using drugs. Well, they want to feel good, or they just don't want to feel good at all. They're in pain, right? So why are we punishing them, right? And if we decriminalize all drugs, then we get rid of a lot of violence and a lot of crime, right? So this is kind of my approach of everything, looking at causes instead of effects, and just moving forward, progressing this way.
So what has been your favorite part about running for president?
You meeting people like you. Honestly, it's so inspiring to meet people who understand the importance of getting involved in politics, and not necessarily even running for office, but just having a voice, sharing your opinion, because everything we do matters. We're planting seeds. And, I've been speaking to different communities, not just libertarians or politicians. I've been talking to spiritual groups, to entrepreneurs, and it's been great because I've been getting invited to speak to these communities because the leaders are saying that their communities need to think about politics because it is a part of life and that we can't avoid it. And so I'm really grateful for all the people that I'm meeting along this journey that understand why we should be involved and how this affects our lives. We can't be on the sidelines.
Well, with you talking to other groups that are kind of outside of libertarianism, have you found success? And if you have found success, can you share with the rest of us, please?
Yeah, I don't know how to answer your question. Yeah, everyone's been, I'm well received, because of the way that I bring up the conversation. I'm not telling people to vote for me or to be libertarian. I'm just having very open conversations and sharing my journey and why I'm involved, and also sharing successes. Like, for example, I'm a board member, a criminal justice reform group, and one of the things that they help do is pass historical legislation to hold prosecutors accountable in New York, right? None of the people on this organization are elected officials or anything like that, We're just regular people. Most of us got involved because either ourselves or somebody that we knew was wrongfully convicted, and we're able to change legislation, and we're working on amending the New York State Constitution even, right? So anybody can make a difference. They just have to have the will and to stick with it. And what I've learned is that when you're doing something that ultimately benefits all of humanity, not just a small group of humanity, it's really easy to get people to work with you and to support you because they benefit too.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, we've got just a few more minutes here. We've got about 6 minutes left. Has there, I want to see how I can phrase this. Has there been a time where you fighting for liberty and spreading that message that you have hit a wall and almost just gave up and threw in the towel? And how, if you you've hit that wall before, how did you pick yourself up and get through it?
Well, I'm human, so I'm not immune to those experiences. I don't think they affect me as much as they affect others. This definitely, running for president, applying for the position of president of the United States of America, it really, mentally, you have to stay very grounded because I believe it will mess with your head. There are, people coming in and out of the races and you just don't know what's going to happen. And so for me, one of the things that I remind myself is, look, Sorinne, you are a unique person. You bring something very unique to this election that nobody else does. And yes, there are many other people that bring things of value, but you have to continue to share your voice and your values and your visions because they're going to resonate with somebody. There's somebody who needs to hear what you have to share, and you have to not think about what anybody else is doing and just focus on what you bring to this, because I honestly believe that my only competition is myself. We're our own worst enemies. And if we can get beyond that, then people can see who we really are. And that's really, what I'm working on is for delegates and for voters to see who I am so I can get out of my own way and be of value, because I believe that all of us, and I've mentored some, or not, I don't know if mentored is the right word, but, I've coached or mentored some other candidates that have gone through some difficult times since we all began this journey, though, I started kind of late. Well, the same thing, reminding them too. It's like, look, you bring something different to this. We all do. And so everybody that has felt called to be a part of this race, this election, deserves to be there and deserves to be heard. Whether I agree with them or not is another story, but I know that they are here for a reason and that we all add value in some shape or form.
So lastly, being on the campaign trail, and you've been able to commingle with a lot of your, co-candidates.
Yeah.
Who has been your favorite candidate obviously besides yourself, but not for the position, but just your favorite personality or person that you've just really kind of maybe meshed with whenever you guys get together, whether it's debates or functions or, you know what I mean? Like just not an endorsement or anything like that, just kind of somebody that you've kind of looked forward to and you've had fun with.
Well, actually, I've had fun with so many of the candidates. There's I don't have a favorite, and that's actually one thing I really like about this party. And I was really nervous at first because it was like I got invited to a group with candidates. I'm like, really? Like they're gonna be nice to me, But everybody has been so helpful, and we've been working together. You'll see I've done other interviews with other candidates, and we've been on debates and panels together, and we're really respectful. I look forward to connecting with all the candidates that I've engaged with and, getting to know more. It's like, I was in a debate a few nights ago with somebody that I hadn't engaged with before. And we we engaged through the debate, and had this great connection. And so I think that there's just a lot of great quality candidates in the Libertarian Party. And, I get along with them all. I love them all. They're all great. And I'm not just saying that as a canned response. I really, if you look at what I've been doing, I really have been getting along with the candidates. We play well together.
So, what is your, next move, especially with Amash out of the race? And if you don't end up with the nomination, what's your plans next?
Yeah. So right now I got about a dozen volunteers that are helping me out, and we are doing our best to have a chance for me to debate so that I can get a chance to get the nomination. That's my only focus right now. Yeah, I don't know what to make about Justin, so we're not going to talk about that. That kind of threw me off. Hey, and as far as next, I'm not thinking about next because this is what I'm focused on, and I'll know really soon, what, if I need to think about what's next or not. But for now, I'm just staying focused on this because I know it's really important to single focus, whatever it is we want to achieve in life. Don't spread your energy around too much.
Well, thank you so much, Sorinne. I really appreciate the conversation. I absolutely adore you and your view on liberty and just being authentic with it and yourself. I think that is a fantastic message that needs to be spread. And I hope it catches. I'm pretty sure. I mean, it caught with me. I've caught it. So, yeah, I really encourage other people to keep listening to your message and to follow you. So, thank you so much, Sorinne. Ladies and gentlemen, Sorinne Ardeleanu. I hope I did not butcher your name.
You did great.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so stick around. Up next, we have Robin Corner, and we'll take a quick break and see you guys in a bit. Thanks. Thank you, Sorinne.
Thank you.